every Super Bowl has hype. And usually, the biggest event in television lives up to it all.
Away for a touchdown. How important is this football game?
What a play.
Unbelievable.
Holy catfish.
I don't know how he did it. An amazing play. What a finish to an unbelievable Super Bowl.
Now, on the doorstep of the big one, it's hard to imagine it leaving the audience with anything but a classic. You can take your pick of storylines, but how can we ignore the one right in front of us? On one hand, there's Brock Purdy, a 1 in 24 million story. Yep, we did the math. Is back in the city where he heard his name called last.
47th Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy.
Taking the NFL by storm.
He cannot be stopped.
He is amazing.
Then there's Patrick Mahomes, a one-of-one player on the verge of leading a team to back-to-back titles for the first time since 2004. One of the only ghosts he's chasing.
We ain't done yet.
He's on his way to becoming the best quarterback who's ever played.
Legacy-defining game for Patrick Mahomes.
And with Vegas as the backdrop for the first time ever, all bets are off. This surely will be one for the record books. Welcome to Super Bowl 58 on CBS.
Man, goosebumps. The Super Bowl kicking off later this evening. We cannot wait. Tonight at 6:30, there's a look at the matchup. The 8th rematch in Super Bowl history happening right here on CBS. Make sure you keep it locked with us all day long as we get you ready for this big matchup, the season finale of the 2023 season. So let's set the stage from Las Vegas ahead of Super Bowl 58 as we welcome in CBS Sports reporter Tom Spencer from Vegas. Tom, before we dive into what will be a colossal matchup, you actually have the script for that Jim Nantz package we just aired there. Walk us through kind of what it was like to get to watch him in his element, getting us ready for that big game.
Well, thank you, Haley. Yes, that was last week. We were in Pebble Beach at a golf tournament, believe it or not. Now we're at the Super Bowl, but Jim, one take, okay? And I've worked with Jim for many, many years, and I was joking with him. It's not too often that he gets to introduce a segment that I'm involved with, but he was excited to do it. And as you could hear in his voice, you know, this is a meaningful day. He gets to call the Super Bowl. It's one of the great honors in broadcasting. And of course, for our network, this is a huge, huge opportunity to watch two amazing teams. You've got the #1 seeded 49ers against the defending world champion Chiefs. And we're expecting a close contest because these two teams are very evenly matched. And I'm sure most of America is excited to watch it as well.
Yeah, there's so many storylines in this game, right? You, of course, have the obvious in Brock Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant back in the city where he became Mr. Irrelevant. You got the Chiefs dynasty. What's your biggest headline that you're looking forward to in today's game?
I think you just said it, the dynasty word. You know, this is history we're talking about. The Chiefs, if they can accomplish a third Super Bowl in basically a 5-year period, you know, you're putting yourself in a higher echelon. You know, the 2004 Patriots are the last to defend a Super Bowl title, and as we know, they didn't stop there. They kept on going. And then the 49ers, it's kind of been an underscored storyline, I think, building up to this game, but the 6th Super Bowl championship, they'd be their first since '94. You remember from '81 to '94, they won 5 Super Bowls. They were the dominant franchise in the NFL. They've had a couple opportunities since, tight games that they lost coming down to the wire, including the game in Super Bowl 54 against these Kansas City Chiefs. But for the 49ers and their fans, they have been anxious to get another Super Bowl title, and it would be a significant one. First time since they left the city of San Francisco to move to Santa Clara in 2014. So it's kind of like a new chapter. And with Brock Purdy starting his career, Mr. Irrelevant, maybe becoming the most significant story actually in the NFL with a win today, and possibly pulling off the upset, it would be huge for his career and for this franchise.
Yeah, he has just been such a fun story to watch. Let's continue the San Francisco conversation here because obviously the Niners looking to win Super Bowl #6 to tie the record, of course, for most in NFL history. We know how dynamic that offense is with Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, and then you mix in a Brock Purdy who's learned how to use his legs in the last couple of weeks here. What are you expecting out of Kyle Shanahan's camp in this game?
Well, you make a great point about Purdy's legs. You know, that could be the hidden intangible today, honestly, because they have so many players on offense that can burn you. But Purdy bringing this team back from 2 second-half deficits in the playoffs so far. And quite honestly, San Francisco has not played their best football yet. We'll see if today's the day. But they were down 7 points to Green Bay in the second half, came back and won. Down 17 points at halftime to Detroit, again came back. And Purdy's ability to move around in the pocket, he's not easy to sack. He's run this offense very, very well. So he wants to get the ball in the hands of his playmakers. He's 4-1 in the postseason. That's an outstanding statistic to start your career. He's a guy that likes to be very accurate with the football, use his legs, as you say. But I'm focusing on one player today to make Purdy's life easier, and that's this man, Christian McCaffrey. He led the NFL in touches this year. He has 260 scrimmage yards in the postseason. He wants to be a Hall of Famer. This is the day where you make that happen. You have a big day. Kyle Shanahan would like to run the ball at least 30 times in this football game. He feels like that is the best way to win. That's the way his father won 2 Super Bowls with Terrell Davis back in the 90s. And Christian McCaffrey, this is a great statistic. He led the league this year in yardage pre-contact. He was second in the NFL, Haley, in yardage post-contact. So he gets a running start, and it takes 2 or 3 guys to bring him down. If McCaffrey is dominant today, the Niners have a very, very good chance of winning this football game.
The Niners offense is so interesting because you have 2 guys in Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey who play a certain position but can do both of what those positions entail. So it makes it really challenging for a Chiefs defense that's really been their bread and butter this year. And when we talk about the Chiefs, I think we all learned a valuable lesson this year to never count out Patrick Mahomes in any situation. This guy has 2 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. What's going to be the key to success for Patrick Mahomes and his crew today?
He's simply a winner. It's a really amazing thing to think back that this team has won 6 postseason games in a row, including last year's Super Bowl. In those 6 games, Patrick Mahomes has not thrown a single interception. He has been dominant in the postseason. And you know, the one thing about this team, we've covered them all year. There were a lot of highs and lows, but the key game for them was a contest that we broadcast. As you look here at one of the coldest NFL playoff games, they've been unbelievable in the postseason. But going back to New Year's Eve against Cincinnati, they finally found their offense. And by that I mean Rashee Rice, who's been a good player all year, lines up opposite Travis Kelce. He kind of mirrors Kelce in that role. So when they double Travis, now Mahomes has a reliable second option on the other side. He had that for years with Tyreek Hill, of course. He had it with Sammy Watkins. Now he has it with Rashee Rice. So that makes that tandem very difficult. The other key was Travis Kelce, as I mentioned. Week 18, the Chiefs, as you recall, were already locked into the 3 seed, so they rested their starters. It was almost like a bye week. Travis Kelce got healthy. He's back in the playoffs. He's making life miserable for his opponents. And if you're looking at one matchup today that's probably the key to the game, it's Andy Reid's play calling against Steve Wilks' defense. They have not been good, the defensive coordinator for San Francisco, at stopping the run in the postseason. You'd think Pacheco would have a big game. They have not gotten the pass rush going like they would like, and they really haven't played a complete game on defense probably since before that Baltimore contest, which really almost derailed the second half of their season. So the Niners need a big game on defense today, obviously containing Patrick Mahomes. It starts there, maybe getting a turnover or 2, but as I pointed out, he does not turn the ball over often. He's a winner, and he is thinking dynasty. He is not only thinking, Patrick, about repeating, but he's thinking about next year, what that would mean to possibly go for 3 in a row. Again, first things first, but Kansas City, a very confident bunch.
Yeah, we can't get too far ahead, but honestly, at this point, I believe you. I believe that they're prepping for next year already. Tom Spencer helping us get set for that big Super Bowl game kicking off later this evening. Tom, we certainly appreciate it. As we know, the game kicks off today, 6:30, but we've got coverage starting at 6 o'clock and all day really leading up to the big game. Keep it locked on CBS and on Paramount Plus to get ready. Welcome in our Sportsline betting experts. We got Money Mike McClure and the Counselor of Cash, which, by the way, is my new favorite nickname. We've got Sia Najad joining us today. Gentlemen, as someone who's new to the betting game here, I got to be honest, thinking about betting the Super Bowl feels overwhelming, especially when it's a matchup like this. So, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Give me some tips. Like, what's the best way to approach betting the Super Bowl? And then, of course, Sia, you follow.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. You know, this late in the game, I would say now is a good opportunity if you're looking at player props to start to look at unders as we've seen these numbers move throughout the last 13 days. That's what I would start to look at if you're looking for game day action on player props. As far as the sides, there's just far more options than a normal week in the NFL. You'll be able to bet a lot of player props in individual halves, individual quarters, just significantly more markets. So if you think you have an edge, you think you like certain players, you have far more options to get creative this week than any other week.
Yeah, I agree that it's a good time to splash with some unders, especially on some of the more popular players like the Travis Kelce's, the Patrick Mahomes, Christian McCaffrey's, things of that nature. But the one thing I want to stress about the Super Bowl is sometimes less is more, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't make any bets. But just because somebody has 20 or 30 bets on the Super Bowl, that doesn't mean that's what you need to have. I think it's a really good time to have some fun with some maybe exact scores and things like that. A couple bucks here, a couple bucks there, but just hone in on. We've all heard for 2 weeks so many different bets. Let's hone in on like 2 or 3 or 4 that you really like and focus on those. And by the way, there's going to be some live betting opportunities in this game as well. So if you don't like anything pre-flop, I think you can wait until that we see the game flow, we see certain game scripts, and then we can maybe hammer something live as well.
All right, so we're practicing patience here, and we're gonna less is more. 2 things, 2 big takeaways there. Let's get into some of the matchup wagers here, though. We're gonna put what we just learned to the test. We'll start with a top play on the side for the big game. So the Chiefs currently a 1.5-point dog in this one. Mike, how do you attack that?
Yeah, I'm on the Kansas City side here, Haley. I played this +2 over on the Sportsline site. Still like it a +1.5 as well. Kansas City's got the better quarterback, the better defense, and a significant coaching edge. Not as significant, but the kicking game can't be understated in games like this. So this team has all the experience. They've been there. They've played in this building already 4 times, 4-0 here. But it's really about Patrick Mahomes. So what he's been able to do in this Kansas City offense that is finally clicking, they're able to knock off these 6 to 8 minute drives consistently. When you do that, that gives that Kansas City defense and that pass rush time to be well rested every time they're facing Brock Purdy. And then it puts so much pressure on Brock Purdy in San Francisco to simply be perfect offensively because of the limited number of possessions. Give me Kansas City here. I made them a -1 favorite.
Haley, I hate to do this, and I did it 2 weeks ago when I went against Mike McClure and took the Baltimore Ravens. So hopefully I'm not setting myself up for disaster again, but I like San Francisco in this game. I like their defense. So their defense has been very underwhelming, but I think with the 2 weeks off, I think Steve Wilkes will have this front 4 and maybe this front 7 really clicking on all cylinders. I think it's a pretty good matchup. Listen, if this front 4 can get some pressure and rattle Mahomes just a little bit, I love this linebacker core. And I like the fact that Kansas City, there's such a high concentration of targets to Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. You didn't see that with like the Packers game, for example, or the Detroit Lions game. There was a lot more to deal with on the defensive side of the ball in terms of covering skill player like receivers and running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery as an example here. We just have the 2 receivers and we have Isaiah Pacheco. The long and short of it is I think this defense steps up, and from a skill player standpoint, I think guys like Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, they can change the game on one play. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for sound defense, limited possessions, and I'm looking for splash plays from the skill players for the San Francisco 49ers. Give me the money line.
All right, let's move on to the total next. We're trying to find our best bang for our buck there. The point total in the game is set at 47.5, but Mike, you're actually just looking at the first quarter here.
Yeah, looking for a fast start in this one in the first quarter, going over 7.5 here. Look, you've had a lot of time to prepare. These are 2 offenses that are extremely creative in the play calling. We all know how good Andy Reid specifically has been coming off of a bye in extended time. It's also why Kansas City's been so good. They are typically very good just coming out of the locker room with scripted drives. We know Kyle Shanahan also is someone who definitely scripts opening drives here. I think we're going to see a lot of success because these 2 teams should have enough success on the ground. I expect those sustained drives, but I think we're getting scoring here. Once again, Kansas City has scored in 8 consecutive playoff games in the opening quarter. I think that continues here. We're going over 7.5 first quarter.
I'm also expecting a lot of sustained drives through the running game. What I love about the Kansas City Chiefs is they pass a lot, but it's in the short area. So I'm taking the under here, 47.5. This is one of those situations, and I've talked to Mike about this earlier in the week, where I think we see limited possessions relative to other games. And I think those possessions really embody the running game and the passing game. But again, that passing game with the Kansas City Chiefs, yeah, they'll run with Pacheco, but it's short area to Travis Kelce. It's short area to Rashee Rice. And that's just an extension of the running game. It keeps the clock going. I think these, by the way, in the red zone, I think these defenses are good enough to stop touchdowns and maybe have field goals be the end score at some of these drives. So I like the under here, 47.5.
You know, we were talking about like having fun with some of these player prop bets, and obviously one of the more fun ones is betting on Taylor Swift in whatever regards. So we're going to talk a little Taylor Swift here. So yeah, Taylor Swift obviously going to be in attendance after coming all the way from Japan, trying to support her man, but you aren't expecting big things from Travis Kelce in this one.
Well, it's not just Taylor Swift that's trying to support her man. Like, everybody's trying to support Travis Kelce. He's a superstar now. He's really vaulted into a different stratosphere. And I think that's lent itself to maybe this number being a little bit higher and higher, and to the point where it gets too high. And even at FanDuel, it's 72.5 is his receiving yard total. Now, I think Travis Kelce is going to have a pretty good game. I could really see him piling up 6, 7, maybe even 8 catches. Maybe he gets in the end zone, but I don't see a lot after the catch for Travis Kelce. And that's partly because this linebacker core, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner, I really think they're not going to bottle him up, but they're going to contain him. And when I see a total of 72.5, yes, he's going to get a lot of those targets. Yes, it's a concentration of targets to him and Rashee Rice and pretty much nobody else. But I don't see him eclipsing 72.5. And I really think this number has kind of been steamed up for obvious reasons. And you just brought it up. I think it probably should be sitting at like 67.5. I'll go ahead and take the under.
And I'm going to look at Patrick Mahomes here. I'm going to go over his rushing attempts. This number is set at 4.5, minus 112 right now. I think it's a very generous look here when you consider the fact, first of all, any sort of kneel down in any situation, whether it be first half or end of game, that counts as a rushing attempt here. But this is the time when Patrick Mahomes takes off and runs. He's gone over this in each of his 3 Super Bowl appearances so far. I believe the number should be set at 5.5 pretty much any time they're playing a must-win game. When you look at the advantages that San Francisco might have in this game, it's that front 4 on the defensive line against an offensive line in Kansas City that's a little beat up here. That's where I expect Mahomes to really take off and use his legs. Love the rushing attempts here over 4.5.
Yeah, we all remember Patrick Mahomes taking a couple knees the last time these guys met. So I'm excited for this matchup, man. Before we let you guys go, we got to talk about the other side here for the 49ers, the top player prop there. Both of you guys are targeting the offensive player of the year and Christian McCaffrey. Sia, I'll give you first word here, and Mike, you follow.
The only path for the San Francisco 49ers, in my opinion, to win the Super Bowl is riding Christian McCaffrey. And this is the last game. So even though there's a lot of tread on the tires from the season, you have to ride Christian McCaffrey. I like his over rushing attempts of 18.5. If you saw him against the Lions, he had 20 carries in that game, and that makes sense. It was a must win. What's interesting is that the game script didn't necessarily favor Christian McCaffrey in that game. They were down a good amount. That's what I love about this the most. Unless they're getting completely blown out, Christian McCaffrey is still going to get his rush attempts. If it's a neutral game script, Christian McCaffrey is still going to get his rush attempts. And if they're winning, Christian McCaffrey is going to get his rush attempts. He probably should have had 23 in the Lions game, but he was out the last 3 carries because he kind of tweaked his neck a little bit. But again, the path to victory, win or lose, I think he gets this. But the path to victory is through Christian McCaffrey. Give me at least 19 rush attempts or more. I'll take the over here.
And I'm also targeting McCaffrey. I'm electing to do it in the receiving yardage market, though. I think the number 33.5 is pretty friendly considering the matchup and just the overall consequences and stakes of this football game here. Christian McCaffrey, as Sia mentioned, the football is going to be in his hands as often as they possibly can. As far as Kansas City and how they're going to defend San Francisco here, I think they're going to elect to play quite a bit of zone coverage and really not let anything behind them. When they do that, that's going to try to put a lot of pressure on Purdy, sit back in the zone, see if he can quickly make decisions and pick them apart. When he has done that this season, that is when he's targeted Christian McCaffrey heavily in the passing game. We know he has the upside to get there on essentially 2 receptions here. He's so good at breaking tackles and gaining yards after contact. I think that's what we see here, but I think we see a lot of pressure on Brock Purdy. very quick release over to Christian McCaffrey. Let's go over 33.5 receiving yards.
I feel like I just left betting school, and now all of a sudden I feel enlightened. I feel better about taking some of these props for the Super Bowl, guys. We always appreciate your help and your insight, especially on a big game like the Super Bowl. Listen, betting is hard, but it doesn't have to be. So you can tap in to Sportsline, use the promo code WINNERS to get 60% off of an annual plan. And trust me when I tell you, these guys are experts. They help you get the best bang for your buck. Make some money, especially on a fun day like Super Bowl 58.